Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we are going to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do, the usual disclaimers. In the description box, if you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shock campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you will find all the pertinent links to get you up to date in regards to the campaigns against them. In particular, I want you to take note of an article written by NeuroClastic, a small non for profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center felt so threatened by this particular article. They have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic has refused, folks. Read that article, share it on all your social media. We also have in there NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe in case the JRC actually decides to see through with it. Also included, well, no, trigger warning, sorry. Blah. Brain dead. End of day. Blah, blah, blah. Folks, when we talk about places like Agape Boarding School for Boys or the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, folks, please go ahead and use those headphones, all right? Also, trigger warning, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously, folks, parental supervision is very much advised. All right. Now, if you don't follow me on Twitter, which I'm going to say probably the good majority of you don't, good, stay out of there. It's a cesspool, it's the dregs of humanity. But just to let you know, starting next week, my hours are going to change again. Pretty much same hours, but it's going back to where I have Tuesday and Wednesday off. So open, blah. So open chat, it's going to get moved right back to Mondays. It's going to be a little bit later in the day, but that's when we're going to start having those lives again. It's still going to be every other week. I do apologize for it having been so long since a live. I've been exhausted and dealing with hours changing and all kinds of craziness, okay? Okay, here we go. Where we left off. Gay conversion therapy has faced more public condemnation than ABA, despite that the both are ongoing. Proponents of ABA and its practitioners claim modern ABA looks nothing like conversion therapy or the original therapy created by Levis. Now, I can tell you, having been an individual who's read this so-called better, gentler, kinder ABA, they're full of shit. Absolutely full of shit. The only difference that has really changed is the more flowery language that it uses throughout it. It still has in there removal of affection. It still has in there that unless we're meeting neurotypical markers, then you can withhold food or bathroom. Okay? They just use kinder words. Yeah. However, the premise has not changed. You're still trying to make us neurotypical. I'm sorry, but I'm calling it what it is. And even if it didn't have all the adversives and hoops that we have to jump through, Telling someone out the gate as soon as they get their diagnosis that they, as they were born, is not good enough is going to cause trauma on its own without additional outside influences feeding into it. Just calling out reality there. Stock and Elfer echo this sentiment. While fewer ABA therapists use corporal punishments such as electric shock, several institutions still actively use it. Even modern ABA modifications that swap electric shock for withdrawal of social interaction are refinements designed to make the therapist feel more comfortable. You see what I mean? Nothing has actually really changed. The removal of affection from your own child. Ignore them when they are screaming in horrific pain due to sensory issues because it's inappropriate behavior. It doesn't matter how painful it is to us that we're screaming because it's painful. It is painful to the level that all we can do is scream. No, because I'm not approaching it as a neurotypical would, because I can't take the pain long enough in order to, in a neurotypical way they approve of, tell them there's a problem. You see where I'm going here, right? The fact remains, ABA and compliance training is, as Amy Sequenza writes, for the autistic non-binary network, violence against our neurology, our identity, and our humanity. It's all of the above. All of the above. Okay? It's still living in that fantastical world where if we just wish hard enough, we'll be neurotypical. First off, as I get older, I become the old, grumpy, jaded autistic, all right? You neurotypicals have got some real problems, especially this current social media generation. You got too much free time on your hands. You are too obsessed with complete strangers, and you knee jerk react to literally everything. Okay? Like I mentioned, this is one of my biggest beefs with the Palestinian Israeli thing. Everybody wants to simplify it. It's good versus evil. Obviously, Hamas is evil. It's infinitely more complicated than that, as all things are. Okay? It's the same basic principle here. Okay? When you are still trying to force me to be neurotypical, to play pretend, it takes a psychological toll. There is a price to be paid, and the parents forcing me into it and the therapist who's administering it are sure as hell not going to be the ones who pay that psychological price. Okay? Let's move on here, shall we? This is where doubt and anxiety permeate autistic self-advocacy groups when discerning how far removed from modern ABA is it from its marred history. The generation of autistic kids who endured Levis' prototype of ABA are now middle-aged adults speaking about their trauma. This would be my age group, folks. They're talking about us. Now, those of us who found out later they were given the wrong diagnosis managed to, by the skin of our teeth, as it were, be able to escape ABA. Also, people like me give the lie to the what ABA preaches. This idea that we'll never be able to go out on our own, never be able to go out and be social and do things and live life to its fullest without ABA. Horseshit. Horseshit. To quote my stepdad, I told you we use profanity on occasion. I have never spent a single day in ABA. What I can tell you is I've been living out on my own successfully, bar a year and a half, since I was 18 years old. I've held steady employment, paid for my own insurance. I've done all the things that neurotypicals have told me my whole life that I'd never be able to do, and then I did some more. Okay? Things that they believed would be impossible for me. To be able to move along among politicians like I have and still do. To have the influence, at least within my state, that I still do. You see where I'm going with, right? Now, I've had multitude of parents attack me. The famous, "You're not my child. You don't understand him like I understand him." Okay, I'm going to need you to take back up off of your knee-jerk Karen reaction and to realize that your child and myself share a diagnosis. Although autism does not affect each person who has it the same, at the end of the day, for your nonverbal kid, I understand in a way that you, the parent, will never be able to understand on any level what's going on with your kid. Okay? That's just a fact. My point is, you see where I'm going with this. And the people who say it's impossible, remember, I worked for the state. My region covers 25% of it. That's thousands and thousands of people I served, folks. People coming through my office doors every single day. Okay? You did have the rare occasion where you had the one person who has never set foot inside ABA. In particular, because she also lived at the same assisted living place I did, as well as being a consumer. Renee. Renee. You remember her. I remember her quite well because she's held down the same full-time job at McDonald's that she has held since she was 16. And wouldn't you know it, with proper staff, people who, through means of her own family, you see where I'm going with. She lives and pays her own bills, folks. She's able to get out in the world just fine. Because she was under person-centered planning, not ABA. Due to her communication issues, she was able to receive funding through Medicaid in order to be able to get her hands on an assistive device to help her communicate with the outside world. And because of those reasonable accommodations and assistive devices, she's doing just fine. And I bet she's a hell of a lot happier than a lot of people stuck in that special cycle of hell, which is ABA. And we'll go ahead and close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I will see you next vid.